Peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism. Peace and Pan-Africanism, peace and Pan-Africanism. This is your big brother, Dr. Umar Tunde Ogun Tade, Intercontinental Tunde, the notorious RBG. Tunde, 3 times Minister of Education and Mental Health for the African race. In this lesson, I want to talk about the mysterious disappearance of the Harriet Tubman $20 bill. I want to talk about the mysterious disappearance of the Harriet Tubman $20 bill. Let me give you a little bit of history. Barack Obama, while in office, this was around 2014, received a letter from a 9-year-old girl. I forget whether she was black or white. And the 9-year-old girl asked Barack Obama to put Harriet Tubman's face on U.S. currency. I'm not sure if she specifically said the $20 bill or not, but she said U.S. currency. She said that Harriet Tubman should be on the money as a sign of respect for her contribution and for all women. So Barack Obama's Secretary of the Treasury at that time in 2016 announced that Harriet Tubman would soon go on the face of the $20 bill. So it was pledged by Barack Obama in 2014. It was announced by then Secretary of the Treasury in 2016. And we are now in 2023. So next year will be 10 years, a whole decade, since Barack Obama first pledged to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. And yet the greatest woman to ever walk on American soil, arguably the greatest female revolutionary in the Western Hemisphere, still has not been found on the face of the $20 bill. The plans called for Harriet Tubman's face to replace that of racist, slave-owning Andrew Jackson, who not only was a staunch white supremacist, he was also responsible for the Native American Trail of Tears that forcibly migrated Native Americans to territory in the distant West, which led to the genocide of many within their culture. So no one is a fan of Jackson, not the Native Americans nor the American Africans. But why hasn't Harriet Tubman made it to the front of the $20 bill? We do know for a fact that President Donald Trump deliberately stalled Harriet Tubman going to the front of the $20 bill. We know this. He stalled it. He was not interested in it. He is not a fan of abolition. And while we have so many Negroes running around saying we need to vote for Donald Trump is beyond me. But Donald Trump was an opponent to the move to put Harriet Tubman on the front of the $20 bill. And so during the election campaign, President Joe Biden also reaffirmed his commitment to Harriet Tubman going on the front of the $20 bill, but he has not done so. He hasn't done anything about it. So neither Donald Trump nor Joe Biden did anything, but Trump wasn't interested. Obama didn't see to it. And Joe Biden has done nothing to see to Harriet Tubman getting to the front of the $20 bill. And so now I want to tell you why I believe this is being stalled. I think there's several reasons why Harriet Tubman is not on that $20 bill. It may not get to that $20 bill. However, I can foresee a situation where Joe Biden, out of electoral desperation, I can see a potential situation where President Joe Biden, out of electoral desperation, forces Harriet on that $20 bill just in time for next November's elections. I could see that. September to September of 2024 is 12 months. October is 13 months. Joe Biden has 13 months to get Harriet Tubman on that $20 bill. And if he does it, I do believe that delivers him the White House for a second term. Because black people are all about symbols, not substance. We are addicted to symbols. We are not about substance. And so I believe if Joe Biden, out of electoral desperation, gets Queen Mother Harriet Tubman vindicated on the front of that $20 bill, I believe that black people would come out en masse to vote for him a second term as they did his first term. Because right now, according to the polls, he's not looking too good. His black approval rate is at his lowest all time since he inhabited the White House. Donald Trump and the Democrats are in trouble. They are in trouble. So you might just see Queen Mother Harriet on that 20 in time for the November 2024 presidential elections. But barring that, what are some reasons it has taken the Democrats to get Harriet Tubman onto the $20 bill as promised by Barack Obama in 14 and the Secretary of Treasury in 16, and then reaffirmed by President Joe Biden when he was put in office a few years ago? Next year, it will be a decade. 2024 will mark 10 years since the Obama promise, and still Harriet Tubman is not on the 20, and I'm going to tell you why I think she's not. Let me give you the intellectual analysis of Ifa Tunde. Let me give you the intellectual analysis of Ifa Tunde. Let me give you the intellectual analysis of Ifa Tunde. Reason number one, America is a white racist country. America is a white racist country. America is a white racist country. White people are more anti-black now than they have been since the 1960s. White people haven't been this anti-black since the 1960s. Civil rights, black power era. From the 70s until the 2020s, that's the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010, 50 years, racism went somewhat covert. Somewhat covert. We still had the Rodney Kings, the Hurricane Katrinas, so forth and so on. So somewhat covert. But it is more blatantly aggressive and in the open than it has been since Dr. King's murder. These are not the white people who are going to be supportive of a black face on that 20. Joe Biden knows this. So although he may force it out of electoral desperation because there's more white people than black people in America and they are largely anti-black, because there's more white people than black people in America and they are largely anti-black, because there's more white people than black people in America and they are largely anti-black, I don't think Joe Biden is going to do it, because he may alienate middle-of-the-road Republicans, conservative Democrats, in a white America that is clearly committed to rolling back all of the gains of the civil rights era as well as the gains of abolitionism. They would put us back in slavery if they thought they could do it quickly and silently. They would put us back in slavery if they thought they could do it quickly and silently. They would put us back in slavery if they thought they could do it quickly and silently. So although Joe Biden has an argument to get the black vote by putting Harriet Tubman on that bill, at the same time, there is an anti-argument that says you put that black woman on the 20, you can kiss the White House goodbye. So we have to wait and see what the Democratic Party does about Harriet Tubman's face on that 20. To make a long story short, no president wants to be the president that put Harriet Tubman's face on the 20. Now, some of you are going to say, wait a minute, Doc. Some of you are going to say, wait a minute, Doc. Some of you are going to say, wait a minute, Dr. Umar. I mean, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she got nominated to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is a permanent appointment. Judge Ketanji, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji, will be there for the rest of her life. Clarence Uncle Tom, although he's plays for the other team. He has a white basketball, not a black one, but Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, he's going to be there forever, but he don't count because he's clearly an ally of the white power structure. But Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's there for the rest of her life. And to that, I say, you are missing the bigger point. You are missing the bigger point. Is that hair in my nose? It's hair. It's hair, brothers and sisters. I got to clip it. It's a piece of hair. I see it. The issue, Barack Obama was president for 8 years. He's done. Kamala Harris may be vice president for 8 years. She's done. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson Brown, she will be there for the rest of her life. But once she joins the ancestors, she's done. But when you get put on the face of American currency, you are there forever. If Harriet Tubman makes it to the front of the $20 bill, she is there forever. So for traditional, conservative, white supremacists, putting her on the $20 bill is a message to the world that black people are part of the foundation of this country. Harriet on the 20 is worse than 8 years of Obama in the White House. Harriet Tubman on the 20 is worse than 8 years of Kamala Harris in the White House. Harriet Tubman on the 20 is worse than Supreme Court Justice Ketanji being on the bench for another 60, 80 years until she retires. It's worse. That's sending a message to the world that black people matter, and that is a contradiction. Putting Harriet on the 20 is a message to the world that black people matter, and that is a contradiction because in this society, black people don't matter, and the political implications of it, the financial implications of it, the social implications of it, the cultural implications of it, the historical implications of it, a lot of white people are finding this Harriet Tubman $20 bill issue to be in direct contradiction to the intention of the founding fathers. They see this as a constitutional issue, and in their mind, as the Supreme Court Justice who oversaw the Dred Scott case said, quote, black people have no rights that the white man are bound to respect. And because America is founded on capitalism with money and its cash, its currency, the dollar being its central symbol of that capitalism, you put Harriet on that 20, you contradict white supremacy, you contradict the founding fathers, but most of all, you establish that black people are a central and foundational aspect of American society and history. We know that to be true. That's not the issue. If you're African, you know this to be true. But if you are a white American, you got a big issue because Harriet on that 20 raises black people symbolically, although not actually. It raises black people to equitable status with Caucasians, and they don't want that. They don't want that. They don't want that. You have another issue. You're white male chauvinists who may love patriarchy more than supremacy. You're white male chauvinists who may love patriarchy more than white supremacy. They don't want a woman on the money at all. Because remember, America was founded by white men, for white men, in the interest of white men. So they don't want a woman at all, and especially not a self-liberated slave. especially not a self-liberated slave. So you got your old, established white male patriarchy who ain't trying to hear nothing about no woman's rights or none of that crap, and definitely not a double sword of woman's equality and black equality. Oh, hell no. How you going to put an enslaved African on the money with Alexander Hamilton? How you going to put an enslaved African on the money with George Washington? How you going to put an enslaved African on the money with Alexander Hamilton? For your staunch, philosophically based white supremacists and American patriots, Harriet Tubman on a 20 is too much for them to swallow. That's why Barack Obama only pledged it, but did nothing about it. That's why Barack Obama only pledged it, but did nothing about it. That's why Barack Obama only pledged it. Joe Biden pledged it. Joe Biden pledged it during the campaign trail, but did nothing about it. But there's another issue that I think helps explains Harriet Tubman's delay on getting onto the $20 bill. And you know what that is? The white racist feminist movement. The white racist feminist movement, need I remind you, Harriet Tubman was a contemporary of many of the founding mothers of white feminism. The Lucretia Motts and the Susan B. Anthonys. Harriet Tubman was a contemporary. And Harriet Tubman would have never been invited by those white women to be a member of the women's lib movement, the women's suffrage movement, nor would she have been invited to be a member of the female anti-slavery society, because the white feminists of that day and this day did not consider the black woman to be their equal. Lucretia Mott did not consider Harriet Tubman to be her equal. Susan B. Anthony did not consider Harriet Tubman to be her equal. Harriet Tubman couldn't join the women's suffrage movement. Harriet Tubman couldn't join the anti-slavery movement. Harriet Tubman couldn't join the women's liberation movement because she was Negro. She was black. She was African. And guess what? You have the white feminists today. You have the white feminists today who have a problem with Harriet Tubman being the woman to go on the money. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, black woman. Your white feminist sisters don't want your ancestor on that money. I'm going to say it again. Your white feminist sisters don't want your ancestor on that money. I'm going to say it again. Your white feminist sisters don't want your ancestor on that money. They want Lucretia Mott on that money. They want Susan B. Anthony on that money. They don't want Harriet Tubman on that money representing women, because according to them, black women aren't women anyway. You're a hybrid. You're a mixed species of monkey and female. You're not a woman anyway. The white feminists historically were just as racist as any white man. The white feminists historically were just as racist as any white man. And I believe they have a problem with Harriet Tubman being on the money, period. And with her being the representative face of white women of America. Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. And you know who else got a problem with Harriet Tubman being on that $20 bill? Legal extremists. Your white judicial extremists. You know what their problem is? Harriet Tubman broke the law, and she broke the law 100 times over. She broke the law when she ran away. She broke the law when she helped others run away. She broke the law when she spoke out against slavery that was legal in America. She broke the law when she defied the fugitive slave law and the constitutional right of masters to own black people. For the judicial extremists in this country, those people who believe in the rule of law over the rule of right, For the judicial extremists in America, those people who believe in the rule of law over the rule of right, for the judicial extremists, Harriet Tubman cannot go on that money, because if you put Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill, you are sending a message to all African Americans. You are sending a message to every American African that it is perfectly okay for you to break the law in the interest of justice. And we cannot have that in these United States. I hope you understand, overstand, and understand my argument. I hope you understand, overstand, and understand why Queen Mother Harriet Tubman, the greatest woman to ever walk American soil, has not made the face of that money in nearly 10 years after Obama's promise. Because to the judicial extremists, you have just validated protests, you have validated resistance, you have validated straight up war for black liberation. Harriet Tubman represents revolution. She represents defying the government in the interest of justice. Harriet Tubman represents every revolutionary quality. Harriet Tubman is a symbol of black revolution, and she is a symbol that in the interest of justice, you should even confront the government, undermine its laws, and sabotage its institutions if that's what you got to do to free black people. And right now, when black people catching hell all over America and all over the world, that is a dangerous symbol to send to black people, especially the American African in this time. Which takes me to my next point. One of the reasons, and probably the biggest reason, that Queen Mother Harriet hasn't made it onto the 20, one of the reasons, and probably the biggest reason Queen Mother Harriet hasn't made it onto the 20 is because of reparations. If you put the face of an enslaved African, an abolitionist, most famous conductor of the Underground Railroad, the face of black justice and resistance and women's equality, you put her on American currency, and you have just baptized the reparations movement. You have just vindicated the reparations movement. Because if you're saying Harriet Tubman, this piece of property that managed to escape the freedom, if you're going to vindicate her as an American, and you're going to vindicate American Africans as being part of the fabric of this country, we are going to have to reconcile the damage done to African people as a result of the greatest crime ever perpetuated in human history. And let us not forget, although America was late to the slave trading enterprise, although America was late to the slave trading enterprise, the Spanish were involved before us, the Dutch were involved before them, the British were involved before them. But once the Americans got involved in the transatlantic slave trade, they ended up taking over. America imported more Africans than any other slave empire from the time they entered the trade until the time they ended the trade. America was the #1 enslaver during the time that they were in the trade. So America owes a heavy debt to the American African. And if you put Queen Mother Moses on that $20 bill, if you take Andrew Jackson off the front, although he's going to stay on the back. If you take Andrew Jackson off the front, although he's going to stay on the back. If you take Andrew Jackson off the front of that money and put him on the back and put Harriet up front, that symbolism says it is time for black people to get what is owed them. That $20 bill for many white folks represents a dangerous admission that America needs to pay reparations. This is your brother, King Kong Consciousness.
Madam Secretary, last question. Today is Harriet Tubman Day. She died today in 1913. Harriet Tubman, on the $20 bill, when will we actually see it? When will I be able to pay bills in Tubmans?
2030. I know it's a long way off. That adheres to the original schedule that was announced in 2014 by Secretary Lew and President Obama. We lost 4 years during the Trump administration and pushing it forward, but we have made efforts to catch up, and we remain on that schedule. There's a huge amount of technology that goes into designing currency to make sure that we have the most modern, sophisticated anti-counterfeiting features embodied in our currency, and producing currency is a technologically sophisticated matter. But I'm looking forward to seeing Harriet on the 20 in 2030.